To continue, actually in the previous video I was speaking about the shared secret based authentication. Shared secret based authentication. So in this process, the sender and the receiver will actually share a secret key before their conversation would start. I mean to say, before their communication channel would get established. Okay, so the actual scenario of the communication is something like this. The sender A will send its identity along with the random number generated, which is actually called as nouns. Okay, so that will be sent to the other person to whom he or she wants to communicate. So that person, on receiving, he'll encrypt it using the session key that actually the secret key that actually they had shared before, and along with that they'll send a random key generated by B. Okay, so on receiving this person A, he'll encrypt the random number that was generated, and that it will be sent to the other person on the other end. Okay, so the problem in this way of communication is, so this, see, when I say protocol, protocol is a set of rules that actually they one or the other person would supposed to be follow. So the definition for protocol is the set of rules, isn't it? So the way, or the rule in which the way in which they were supposed to communicate for the establishment of channel between two people is something like this when it comes to this shared secret based authentication. Okay, but the problem in this way of communication establishment is, see, a person who is actually aware of the identity of both this A and B. Say if this person C is a person who actually knew about this A and B, so he can actually play flaw in between, I mean to say, for the establishment of communication between these two. Okay, how he'll manage to do so? So what this person C does is, he'll share the identity of he'll send the identity of A and a random number generated, okay, to B. So next what this B does is, so it will assume that the identity, since the identity is of A, and since A and B have already shared a secret key among them, so he'll encrypt the random key that was actually sent by A, and it will send its random key. So what this B does, since B is not aware about the secret key, since C is not aware of the secret key, what the C does is, he'll send this identity of B and the random number generated or sent by B to A, and A will encrypt this RB, and it will send one more random key that was generated. Okay, so on receiving this, you'll discard this random key anyhow, which is not actually required, and this encrypted whatever the message that was actually supposed to be there as a response for the challenge given by this B, so that it will send to B. So here what exactly happened is, the C has impersonated this A and B. Okay, so for A it has given a feeling that it is like A is communicating with B, and for B it has given a feeling that it is communicating with A, but actually these two are sending the messages through this impersonator C, or the attacker C here. So this is the actual problem that is found, or this is how this communication or this protocol has been misused by the attacker. So now we can just think of changing few things in the protocol. Okay, so let us just make one small correction so that it cannot be misused, or the attacker cannot attack the establishment of communication between A and B. Okay, so what exactly we'll do here? The problem was with the random number that was actually communicated by B. Okay, so we'll see that it is even this RB, it is also encrypted by using that secret key. Okay, so that let A decrypt it and then send it to RB. Okay, so see here in this case, here E is supposed to encrypt it and send. Okay, but here this A has to decrypt it, and like he or she will get back the RB, and that value it will send to B. So this is how we can like manage. It is not that this is the exact solution what we are supposed to have. So somewhere we can manage that this attacker has been stopped from doing so. Okay, because this attacker will nowhere have that secret key for decrypting it and then sending it to B. So that will never happen. Okay, so that is the reason why, or this is how we can correct the protocol. Next is the asymmetric key based authentication. So in asymmetric key based authentication, as you all know, in asymmetric way of communication, we'll have pair of keys, a pair of keys, public key and private key, and for the sharing purpose we actually rely on the certificate concept. So all these things we have already discussed in detail. So now what in asymmetric key based authentication, how exactly the communication or this challenge response or all these transmission takes places. So this person A will share its identity along with the random number generated, the nouns, okay, and its certificate to B. So on receiving this certificate B, so the certificate will contain what? The public key of A, and it will be signed by whom? The certificate authority. So B will have the public key of certificate authority CA, and it will use that public key to validate itself and then look into the public key of A. So on getting the public key of A, so it will send its certificate. B will send its certificate, and also it will sign the random number that is generated by A and the random number generated by B as well. Okay, so for both these two will be signed by B. So this notation here, it is nothing but signing. So B as digitally signed the random number generated by A and random number generated by B, and that is sent to A. So on receiving this, the same explanation again holds good here. So since A has received the certificate of B, so certificate will be signed by certificate authority. A will have the public key of certificate authority, and using that it will look into the content that is present within the certificate, and there it can find the public key of B. So using that it will validate itself and then look into the content of RA and RB. So on getting this, it will again digitally sign this RB, and it will send that to B. Okay, this is nothing but whatever we have performed here, it is challenge response. Okay, so a challenge was sent by B, so B will in turn send B will send a challenge to A will in turn give a response to that challenge. So since it will get back this RB, it has been signed by A, so this will be received by B. See, B has got A certificate which contains public key of A. Using that it will validate and look into the content. Okay, so again this is a flawed protocol. I mean to say, the problem with this protocol, or how the attacker will manage to attack such communication establishment is, so same thing. So C will get the identity and the random number generated, the same he will convey to B. So B will sign it, and C in turn, the received data will in turn be signed by C. Okay, see, when A and B has got public key of certificate authority, even C can manage to get the certificate authority's public key. It might happen. It is not like everything it holds good, every time it holds good. Even if it does not have, it will just sign RA and RB will be signed by C, and it will send it to A. So A will in turn send it to signed by B, and it will be sent. So in turn this will communicate the same thing. I mean to say, the challenge that was given by B will go through this attacker to A, and the same thing will be, the response of A will be sent by the attacker to B. Okay, so I meant to say the C will forward the same response to B. So this is how the protocol will be attacked. So now how I can how we can get rid of this is, instead of the certificate to be shared across the network or the certificate to be sent across the network, we'll assume that to correct this protocol, we have to assume that this A and B have already know the private public keys. Okay, the key pair will actually be shared in the offline format or in any other way that these two will somehow or they might rely on Diffie-Hellman key exchange method, or somehow they have managed to have the pair of keys with them, and then the communication will be established. Okay, and one more thing here is, see, whenever they are communicating, so they'll share their identity. I mean to say, see, A will send its identity and the random number. See, when this is communicating, I mean to say, when B is communicating with A, so B will again send the identity of A here. Okay, identity of A and the random number that was generated by A, random number generated by B, and this will be signed by B. Okay, so since they have already shared the private public pair of keys, so using that they'll validate themselves to look into this data that is being shared. So see, when A is communicating to B, in their communication message, they'll always have the identity shared again. So it will send the identity of B. So say if next communication, say if next message that is supposed to be sent by B to A, so in that case again B, what it does is it will send the identity of A. So in each and every conversation of there, they'll add along with their message, they'll have their identity to whom they are referring to. So that identity will be sent along with the message. This is one way of like the attacker would not be aware of this. Okay, so that's the reason why this is one way in which they'll validate themselves. Okay, so by sending B identity, so it is one way of proving themselves, or one way of misleading the attacker, or like some method in which they'll add the identity. That is the way they'll be communicating. Okay, so this is how this flawed protocol will be corrected. See, the only thing is, this here they add a practice of sharing the certificate, I mean to sending the certificate. So in corrected protocol will not have that concept of sharing the certificate. We will assume that A and B will already have their pair of keys with them. So using that key, they'll be looking into the content that has been shared, which has been digitally signed by the respective ones. Okay, along with that, so whenever they are communicating to intended person, so that person's identity will be associated with the message that they are exchanging. Okay, so this is all about the asymmetric key based authentication. Next is authentication and key agreement. So this authentication and key agreement concept here, first we'll speak about authentication. So authentication, as you all can see, it was performed on long term and short term. So long term and short term means here using a private key, I mean to say pair of keys, and the session key. Okay, see, it is actually conceptually, okay, conceptually actually it is like using private key is expensive when compared to using the session key. Okay, generating the pair of keys for the purpose of communication is expensive when compared to the session key. Okay, that is where it is termed as long term and short term. Okay, so shared secret or private key is a good security and minimize the probability of compromise. They'll definitely minimize the probability of compromising, but they are expensive. So short-term keys must be agreed upon, and derive the short-term keys or session keys during the authentication phase itself. Okay, so instead of generating them using some algorithm and then sharing them across the network, so all these things becomes very tedious and also expensive. What the concept here they are thinking about is to have session keys, and those keys to get generated during the process of communication establishment itself. Okay, so it is something like this. So here we have the secret key cryptography and public key cryptography concept. So what the added or the form in which the authentication will have in this, like here you can see the what enlightenment, or I can say it as the showering of lights from the concept of Diffie-Hellman as well. Okay, so there is some sort of the reflection of Diffie-Hellman concept in this concept. Okay, so what exactly we'll be doing here is, so A will as usual, A will send its identity along with the random number, I mean to say the challenge. So B, what it does is it will encrypt the random key. See, in this concept what I'm explaining, we are using all the concepts which we have already discussed before. Okay, so all those concepts we have brought together and we have found a solution. Okay, so this is how the authentication can take place. Okay, so if you are using the secret key cryptography concept, so in that case what we'll do is we'll have the this person A will share its identity along with the challenge. Okay, so next this B, what it does is it will encrypt the challenge given by A using the shared secret key. Okay, the between A and B, and also it will encrypt the challenge or the random number generated by B along with a session key generated by B. Okay, so on receiving this, A will decrypt it using this shared key that has already been shared between this A and B, and it will encrypt the session key that has been generated by A. Okay, so now both A and B have got session keys of A, I mean to say itself and the other party. So both session keys will be used hereafter for encrypting the messages that they'll be exchanging after the establishment of communication channel. Okay, so this is in the case of secret key. So if you are interested to work with public key cryptography, so here the authentication is something like this. We'll have identity of A, identity of B, and the challenge or random number generated along with the certificate of A. So the same process what I explained before. So B will have the public key of certificate authority. Using that, it will look into the public key of A. So what it does next, it will send the identity of A, as I already mentioned when I was explaining you asymmetric key based authentication. So in each and every communication of theirs, they'll be sending the other person's identity. So since it is communicating with A, it will send its identity. See here, initially A was communicating with B, so it has already sent the identity of B here. Excuse me. Next, so the challenge given by A, challenge generated by B, and see here the session key generated by B is now encrypted using the public key of A. Public key of A was present where? In the certificate of A, that has been shared by A. So all these things will be signed by B, and B's certificate will also be sent to A. So on receiving the challenge, A will respond with the identity of B and the challenge given by B, and using the public key of B, it will encrypt the session key generated by A, and all these things will be signed by A, digitally signed by A. So now even in this case, A and B have got the session keys of A and B respectively, and using both the keys, the XOR operation will be done between A and B, and a new key will be generated, and that key is called as session key. Using that key, A and B will communicate. Okay, I mean to say they'll encrypt the messages using both the keys, and the communication will take place between A and B. Okay, so if you are interested to go with secret key cryptography concept, you can follow this protocol, or else for the authentication purpose, if you are interested to work with the public key cryptography concept, then you can just follow this protocol. Okay, so next is the use of timestamps. So what is this concept of using timestamps is, along with the message that I am sending, I'll associate or I'll append the message with a timestamp. Okay, so when the message was generated, so that time will also be added up with the message that is being shared. So even this is one way of authentication. So looking into the time itself, the other person the other person will get to know, okay fine, this message is now freshly generated or sent. So just by looking into this time and comparing with the time that it has received, it can get to know whether it has been intruded or attacked by any person in between. Okay, that is the concept of timestamps. That is, mutual authentication will now be added up with timestamp as well. Okay, so next is dictionary attacks. So whenever we speak about the concept of passwords, so these passwords can actually be attacked with the concept of dictionary. Okay, so we can have this dictionary type of attack. So as you all know, when it comes to passwords, it is a tendency of human beings to give the password of their loved ones. Okay, birthday date or wedding anniversary date, or any dates which are very much happening to them, or the person's name whom they actually love. So that's the reason why initial days we had this practice. Later on they gave a like people started giving specification for passwords, so that the password has to contain numerics and letters. So even then people have a tendency of associating now the loved one's name with the happening dates. So this can be easily attacked by brute force technique. So this attack can be done either online or offline. So when it comes to online, the attacker is been restricted with certain number of attempts. When it comes to offline, he is free to perform things, I mean to say attack in a different way. So whenever it comes to offline, definitely that person, the attacker will he'll go for some brute force techniques, something like this. Okay, so one of the method that we had used in the previous class, if you remember, a function of password along with some random number generated, that is a 256-bit of data, if you remember. Okay, so generating this function or performing this function or to know what is the password is not a very difficult task. Just by running this piece of code, you can get to know what is the password. You can just simply sit and guess, or this number of iterations will help him out in finding this password. Okay, so how to avoid this type of attack, how to defeat the dictionary attacks that actually happen. For that purpose, what one of the solution is, instead of performing this function only once, we'll perform this function some 100 number of times. So what happens with this solution is, it is not that he'll not at all be able to get the password. Yes, he can get the password still, but the cost is very high. It is computationally very expensive. Running a function 100 number of times to get one single password is not a easy task. So that 100, it cannot be 100 only. It could be 10, it could be 50, it could be 2000, it could be 1000. So computationally, even for us it is expensive, but anyhow we'll generate it for only once. But for the person who has to find it out, he has to perform the same task for say some n number of times. So that will make it computationally very expensive. So this is one way of defeating. The other way of defeating is to rely on the Diffie-Hellman key exchange method. Okay, so if we are relying on Diffie-Hellman key exchange method, so you know the one of the very unique feature of Diffie-Hellman is the usage of discrete logarithm. Okay, so if you remember, so here what happens if you are using Diffie-Hellman method for defeating the dictionary attacks is, so I'll generate a partial key, and that partial key I'll encrypt it using the password, some password which is actually shared by A and B, and it will be sent to B. So B, what it does on receiving it, it will send a challenge, it will generate a challenge and a partial key, and again that will be encrypted by using the password. So on receiving that, it will decrypt it, A will decrypt it and encrypt it using the key. So how this key is generated? Key is generated using G to the power of AB mod P. So in this case, even after if this is attacked by the attacker, so he'll manage to get these two partial keys. So on receiving the partial key, he is aware of this generator, he'll be aware of this prime number, but what about this A and B? So guessing or computing this A and B, it is infeasible. Okay, because you all know the concept of discrete logarithm. It is not such a simple task to find compute this A and B. So there comes the application of Diffie-Hellman, and that Diffie-Hellman can actually be used for defeating the dictionary attacks. Okay, so this method or this type of communication, if you are following, then that protocol, it is called as encrypted key exchange protocol. Okay, so this is all about the concept of authentication. So first part of authentication. So we have successfully we have discussed about the password based authentication, certificate based one-way authentication, shared secret based authentication, asymmetric, and the concept of shared secret key and asymmetric, they are being brought together, and this authentication and key agreement, how exactly can be done, even that we have concluded. And one more added up that we can do is to add the timestamp. We can associate the messages with the timestamp. Even timestamp is also one way of authenticating method. Okay, so finally we have discussed about dictionary attacks, and also we have discussed about how to defeat the dictionary attacks. Thank you guys.